So we obviously, this as a coach, like we create these mental roadblocks for ourselves that stop us from doing big things in life.
So what you got, it's all about breaking through whatever current level of mental barrier you've put out for yourself, and being able to be convinced that you can break through that, and then figuring out how to do it. Welcome to the Property Management Success Podcast, where we interview leaders in the industry to uncover the secrets to profitability, efficiency, and achieving true freedom, whether it's your time, money, or lifestyle. I'm your host, Tony Klein, and I'm here to help you build a wildly successful property management business. Let's get to it. Welcome back to another episode of the Property Management Success Podcast. Today, I'm joined once again by Mark Ainley with GC Realty in Chicago. Mark, it's great having you back, because there's a lot of things we talked about last time that I want to dive a little bit deeper on, and appreciate you coming back on and sharing your wisdom and expertise with our audience.
I prefer it to be all the problems I made before. That I can share.
Well, that's where a lot of the wisdom comes from, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
yeah. Well,
it's funny how you can. You hear a lot more and more about you can't take experience away from you. No matter what, I could go bankrupt tomorrow, but you can't take the experiences away, and the ability to get back to where I'm at will be considerably faster. So that's at least reassuring to all of us.
Yeah, I definitely believe that. I think trying to figure out how to do it once the first time, and beating your head against the wall, and learning all those mistakes, it's a lot easier, a smoother road the second time around, for sure. So. Well, Mark, I know you host a podcast, and for those of you in the audience that didn't listen to Mark's previous interview with us, I encourage you to go back and do that, where we talked about how he grew his property management company, and basically you guys are right around 1,200 doors at this point. Is that right?
Yeah, we're just a tad under 1,400. So.
Oh, wow. Okay. So one of the ways that you got there, I think, is by the unique marketing that you do, and some of the things in the industry that you've leaned into. And one of those things is you actually host a podcast for local investors there in the Chicago market. And I want to talk a little bit about the market itself. And is that unique? Did you just happen to find just the right message for the right market, or was it just persistence? So tell me a little bit about that podcast. First of all, I think everybody can agree that it's not super hard to start a podcast. It's super hard to commit to do episode number 2 and episode number 3. And so let's talk a little bit about where you are now, because I want to give the listeners, you do have the expertise in what you're talking about. So how many episodes, how many downloads, what are we talking about?
Yeah, so we have we just passed this week comes out episode 355, and May 21st will be 5 years since we dropped the first episode. So we have a weekly show. At some point, year 2, we added a shorter Tuesday, what we call a Tuesday tip. It's more of just like a 10-minute hit. So we do call it 6 shows a month. As far as our downloads go, we're just about to get to 1 million downloads, if I remember correctly. So maybe we might have passed it, but I don't think we're there yet. So, but we're getting there. And as far as timing goes, timing is everything in life. But we in early 2000s, I got into the whole bigger pocket scene, and I love that. I love that, going on there and having the forum and being able to talk about stuff. And there's a group of Chicago guys that were all on there, guys and girls, and it just wasn't that street level. And it just was very, you had a lot of people that were wanting information about Chicago, but they weren't getting it from there. And we said, man, maybe you got 13 million people here. You got a million rental units. Maybe we can actually have a show that could be specific niche to Chicago. Now, at that time, this was 2020. It was before COVID, and we ended up starting this during COVID, but it was not a COVID plan. But at that time, I was in running our, we departmentalized sales and marketing, and I was doing that for our company. And I was talking to people, whatever how many leads came in on a weekly basis. But I was talking to these people, and I was doing a lot more educating than I was doing selling, which I'm not a big salesperson. I'm more of a true broker, if in the definition, but I was spending so much time helping people. I'm like, man, like I can only talk to so many people on a weekly basis. So in my mind, it's like, all right, well, on the podcast, if we could reach a couple hundred people a month, that's far more people that I could help than they're calling in. And then maybe I could actually get some people, reach out to people that are not reaching out to me, and then that could obviously turn into a good way to get leads for the property management.
When you first started it, was it the reason I'm asking this question is I love the long game. I love, from me and the ultra running and the long distance stuff I do, I figure I can suffer better for longer than most people and figure things out. And I think that's where success comes from, is not from having that spark of genius. It's from having that spark of genius and then having the dedication and commitment to follow through, even when things are tough, even when you don't know who you're going to have on your podcast or if you're going to have a topic or those kind of things. Did you, when you first started it, was it, let's just kind of see, or was it sort of this commitment that I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it forever? Or was it like, let me just try it? Because I think a lot of times when people try new marketing methods, they try it just long enough to spend a little money to tell themselves that it didn't work.
Yeah, I think anything we were talking about here today in marketing, you have to spend some time. So, for example, last year, I thought, I'm like, all right, I have a nice space. I can invite people in, and we could do these in person, call it meetups, and I called it Grit series, GC Realty Investment Training. And I'm like, I'm going to do 6 this year, and if it works, it's great. We'll see what happens after 6. I'm going to commit to 6. And ultimately, we did the same thing with the podcast. Is we said, let's do it for a year, and let's see where this goes. Now, in my research, you don't have to go that deep to research podcasting that most people don't make it past. I think it's like episode 10 or whatever. Yeah. Like there's a very small percentage. I'm like, all right. So what we did out the gate is we recorded actually 10 episodes. We're like, all right, so we're going to at least make it past that. And so we gave us a little runway starting point there. But I was pretty naive in the beginning. My concerns were in hindsight pretty stupid. I'm like, we're going to run out of people to talk to. Like I already, if after I thought I knew a lot more people than I knew, and that was a big eye opener. Once I started to get to meet friends of guests and so forth, it's been awesome in that sense. But that was my bigger concern. It's like I was going to run out of people to interview, and now it's like endless.
So take me back to when you first started doing the podcast, and that led into other things, because I know you do some other unique marketing events. Like you mentioned, you have the event there. You're bringing people in for meetups. I know that you wind up charging for those events now. How did this one podcast idea spark other marketing opportunities for you?
Yeah, so what happened that was not necessarily mapped out in the beginning was, so we branded it differently. So my company's GC Realty, but we named, it wasn't GC Realty's podcast. We named it Straight Up Chicago Investor Podcast. We got the flag for the logo for Chicago. We just thought that was way cooler than GC Realty Podcast. So we branded it differently, and I think it attracted more people out the gate because it wasn't like just somebody trying to sell them something. And I'll come back to the problem here in a second that I created also that I'm still trying to solve is, and it created this separate branding, and it created this separate community. And the word community is the key word there that never intended on doing that. And when I say community, it ended up being this group, it turned into the Facebook group. We have Straight Up Chicago Investor Club. And now we got 3,000 people in there. And it turned into these events that people were coming to that I hated events. I don't know if you remember PM Grow, where the guy came up, sold that $1,000 product to be the master of throwing events and getting referrals. I think it was like 2018. We bought that. I'm like, I hate this. This is horrible. Especially in Chicago, where it's like you throw events and it snows or you have a thunderstorm and no one shows up. But we got to the point where we got a lot of people that wanted to be in the same room, so we actually were able to charge, and not so much as a profit center, but people pay, they're going to come for the most part. $50, $60, they're going to show up even if it snows. So, but it created that opportunity, and then the whole community thing. It really kind of took off in itself, and now what I've been spending the last 2-3 years doing is like, all right, how do I bring the community back to, hey, this is the service I offer. I have this service as well too. Here's a resource at the end. Here's my call to action about why you need my service and so forth. So bringing them back together has been, if anything, my biggest challenge.
Well, I like the fact that you were able to create that community. I can't remember the exact line, but there's a line in the Social Network movie, and Zuckerberg basically says something like, create the community or create the audience, and then you can figure out what to do with it, how to monetize it, something like that. And
I love that scene. And the scene he
it,
actually he uses a reference. He compares it to like a party. He's like, you can't throw the biggest party of the year and end it at 11 or something
yeah,
like that. You have to let this go and let it play out and see where it goes. And I've used that probably scene in that movie to my detriment because I've probably let it go too far before I started kind of trying to bring it back in and really generating property management dollars from it.
yeah. So on the podcast with your guests, do you mention the fact that you have the GC Realty, or is there any tie-in at all?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we do commercials. We do sponsors, which is another thing that came out of it that we actually are profitable on the podcast. But we do sponsorships, and GC is obviously a sponsor of it, and we don't pay. But we do our own commercials. We do on every segment we do a Hauser provider tip. So every episode has that. Where then I turn on, I take that's different marketing I use, right? But that's Mark as the property manager doing that tip every single episode because that's his area of expertise. You also have the tying together of obviously I'm promoting stuff. We had a big main pipe break, water main pipe break this weekend. So I posted all that stuff of how we solved that and so forth. So that's the audience I'm speaking to, the community. So I'm able to tie that back together. And don't get me wrong, we do get referrals from it. I could probably, my endless goal is just kind of capitalize on it more.
Yeah. There are people that are listening to this that are thinking, okay, well, he's got 5 years advanced opportunity, advanced experience, 5 years in building this community. I am interested in doing something like that. I'm trying to figure out how to market my property management company. I'm trying to figure out how to stand out in the noise. But Mark's got such a head start that maybe not in your market specifically, but if somebody wanted to start in another market, what would your advice be to them? Would it be to go down this same path? Would you advise them to pick a different marketing channel to stand out from the noise? What are your thoughts about that?
I don't think podcasting is going away anytime soon, and I think it's only going to continue to grow as somebody's go-to, whether especially with earbuds and like we're always trying to do something these days, and real estate investing ends up being people's hobby in a way. Like it's not like, oh man, I gotta go figure out do something for my turn roll or for my IRA. Like it's not. It's like a different like level of excitement when you talk about real estate. And I think we have two different markets in anywhere in the United States. It's either an investor market or it's not an investor market, right? So I think you have. If you're in an investor market, like you obviously have the leg up. That's huge. If you're in a non-investor market, so say you're on the West Coast, Peter out in Ventura County has his podcast that's all about accidental landlords. So he kind of gears it towards that. And I think when you're in these non-investor, I'm thinking about if I was in these non-investor markets, it'd be more about the education around it being such a valuable path to saving money. You got your traditional ways of doing this, or tying the IRA to investing in real estate. So it's more of an investment planning strategy. And if anything, if I was in San Diego, I would team up with a financial analyst, or not an analyst, like an investment strategy guy, and maybe do a show like that where now you capture his audience that might buy real estate, and then some of your audience can also do 401ks or whatever it might be with them. So you might team up in some sense of that.
Well, I'm really interested to see like what's next, the next marketing thing, the next chapter that we move into in the property management space. Right now, there's a lot of chatter, as there should be, about how AI is going to change the marketplace, how it's going to change business. There's a lot of chatter about documenting your processes and automating your processes and getting really good with how to run a solid operational business that's got its policies and its processes and the automations and all of this. But if we can figure out how to use AI to replace everything that we do in business, bigger companies are going to be able to figure out how to automate and replace what we do as well. And so there's a little bit of, I think, naive hope that we can figure out how to use some of these tools to make our business better, to be able to stand out in the marketplace. And my thoughts are, if you can do these things without people, a small property management company that's got, even 50 or 60 people is small in terms of business in general. They're never going to be able to keep up with some of this automation and some of this, the artificial intelligence. And so what are your thoughts on ways that we can differentiate ourselves? I'm not saying let's not lean into technology. Let's not try to utilize the tools that are available. But do you think that leaning into that specifically is going to be the thing that saves us or sets us out in front of everyone else in the market? Or do you think there's something else uniquely tied to the business owner that is going to be the thing that allows those businesses to thrive?
Yeah, so I think, and some of this is opinion. I think real estate investing, like we're talking about, is more of a attract people that are attracted to real estate investing like it because it's more tangible. You could drive by it, you could see it, and I think that translates into the experience of what they want in investing altogether. I don't think that the human element is going to be replaced altogether. Now, I think in our industry where I think things are changing and either where things are changing is the opportunity to make things easier or do it with less people. Yeah, we're on this big 7-8 year kick of everyone's trying to outsource, hire more remote, if for two reasons: one, save money, and then two, just have more bodies to tackle more of these. It's very intense, high touch business. If you're able to hire more people remotely and do it easier because that role is AI assisted, whatever that might mean, or they're able to search for answers and have the AI really help get them up to speed faster on your particular market and how the maintenance work orders go for that work for that area of the United States. Like I think that's where we all have the huge advantage right now. So to be able to bring people on, get them up to speed, and be able to help them solve problems. All we do is solve problems all day long. You're either solving your client's problems/questions, the tenant's problems/questions, and if we could use AI as more of a tool to do that, I don't think the tenants, at least in our generation, the tenants or the owners are going to accept a full automated response, I guess, in that sense. What are your thoughts? Like, where's your head with that? Like, I'd be curious.
Well, I think you've done a really good job of identifying your target, what I call our target client profile. And you've done a really good job of identifying it's the investor in Chicago that, I'm not sure if you've narrowed down like how many doors they have, how many, how big their portfolio is, how old they are they local, are they remote? But I would assume that because you've done these podcasts and had these meetup events, you're meeting a lot of those people and really being able to dig down into the type of client that you want to serve. And then you're being able to put out messaging around that. And one of the things that I ask when I start working with new clients and I start coaching them through some of their growth opportunities or challenges is, what makes you unique? If I were shopping for a property management company, why would I pick your company versus everybody else that is an option? And I think leaning into those unique identifiers, those things that make you unique to your target client profile is what's going to make you stand out. Then you can use AI and software and all of that to automate the processes and have policies specifically set for that target client profile. And I get the bigger you get, the harder it is to stay within having just one or two of those identified profiles. But I think more companies need to spend time figuring out what makes them different, what makes them unique, and it's all in the messaging and the branding. Because if if you don't know what a property manager does, we all do the same thing, right? And so if I don't know the difference between what Mark does and what Tony does, then the only logical thing to do is to decide based on price. And a lot of people get stuck in that challenge where I'm constantly trying to justify my services and get the fair price for them and not be beat up on price. And so a lot of the things that you're doing, you have uniquely set yourself out from the rest of the marketplace, and you've identified that target client. So for me, I think it's more important to focus on who do I really want to serve? How do I track those people? And then how do I set up a system to be able to serve those people long term so they don't churn out the back end? And it appears from the outside looking in that you've done a really good job of setting that whole framework up.
Well, the real problem to solve, we all know the percentage of how many people self-manage, and they self-manage. Why they self-manage? Because they think they could do a better job than us, or they can do it for cheaper. And honestly, most time they can do it cheaper, but they're not accounting for their time.
Yeah.
They're not accounting for the opportunity costs. And when I talk to self-managing landlords, a lot of times they're right. They got their non-insured guy that could probably do it cheaper, but they're not realizing the 87 hours they spent this year on the two turnovers and all the other management stuff that now either they lost. That's opportunity costs. And I think there ends up still being this level of how do we do it just as well as the self-managing landlord to just be able to continue to take slices of that, what we call blue ocean, into the industry. Because I think that's that's the win. If we can get to that 70% range of self or professionally managed versus self-managed, there's not. I mean, this industry can grow 3 times its size right now if we could figure out how to take the AI and be able to get to that level.
Yeah, I've got friends in this same market out here in Denver, and for 25 years we were technically competitors in the same marketplace, but there was enough business for all of us to be able to grow and have really good, strong businesses because we were all able to figure out our own unique ability and how to communicate that. And then, of course, we would meet for breakfast and have little masterminds and figure out how to help each other move our businesses along. But I'm curious if you were to take a brand new, not a brand new company, a new company that has never really thought about how do I separate myself from my competitors. And a lot of people that get into property management, they come from 2 sources. One is I'm an investor and I can't find anybody to do the kind of job that I want to do as far as managing my properties. And so I'm just going to start a management company. And then the other one is I've got a real estate license. Somebody buys an investment property and they say, I'll manage it for you. And it sort of grows from there. And those have been the 2 sources that I've seen primarily for people that get into this business. Neither one of those really intentionally said, I'm going to create a business out of being a third-party property management company. I'm going to figure out how to be profitable and set up systems and standards. And so if you were to advise somebody that was saying, okay, I'm going to get serious about really growing my property management company, what would you do? How would you advise them on setting themselves apart from their competition?
Yeah, it's funny. You kind of said this, but it's like you never really have that conversation with people that thought till they get to that 100 or 150 doors because, most people under 100 doors are like, I don't spend anything on marketing because they're able to provide such hands-on service that they just get they get a handful of referrals and they can't grow past that much.
And they take on everybody. It's like when you're hungry, you eat whatever you find, right?
Yeah.
It could be a piece of spoiled meat, but you're hungry, you're going to eat it. And we start taking in clients that we really shouldn't take. We have very little standards in the beginning because we just need to eat. We just need to build our portfolio. But once you get to that 100 door mark, you're like, man, this is killing me to be doing all these different unique things for everybody.
And like you, I talk to companies that are kind of at that point all the time, and it's pretty cool because there ends up being some very basic low hanging fruit that if you spent that first year on, like you don't have to spend much money. It's more time intensive than anything. But you get to that 150 doors. More than likely, you didn't invest in the. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to do this, a PMW website or something specific to property management, SEO type setup on your website. You don't have much on there short of a few pages of just kind of bullet points of this is what we do, but it ends up being. I'll tell you this: it's an SEO game. I think. And that's the long game, right? We'll talk about the long game. When I started messing around in 2018, it's like, all right, it's great to go spend money on these leads, but a lot of those leads always sucked. That was always my opinion, and I still do think a lot of those APM leads end up being garbage when I look at our numbers. But when you play that long game with SEO, it's got to start somewhere, and the sooner that starts, the better. And that basically means you're putting stuff on your website, and you're making videos and putting them on your website. And I think the other part where that SEO is starting to tie into already is people are going to chat and the different AI type stuff to ask for who I should call. And you have to, I think that's our next big thing around the corner. How do we, that'll be the seminars we're going to see, like how to show up in Chat GPT's recommended services. Like that's going to, if that's not out there already. But that SEO is the starting point to be able to end up there, and you're not going to be doing it any other way. And I think, so if you if you Google up GC Realty Chicago, you'll go through 2 or 3 pages of all these other BS type websites. I forgot what they're called. There might you sign up and you put your information. They're kind of like business listings, Yellow Pages and all these different places that give you that backlink. They give you another. They show you. They kind of put you on the search. But there's so much of that. There's probably I had a list at one time. Maybe I can share it. But there's like 60 or 70 different places you could go, put your profile in, put a little information in, and now all of a sudden you got a backlink from there. And it'll show up somewhere if someone goes to search you. And then the other conversation around reviews. I don't know this to be 100% true, but I feel that the weeks we get more reviews, we get more leads. But no matter what, I don't think the Google review game is going away anytime soon. And our goal here in Chicago has always been to stay ahead of the competition with reviews. A few hundred ahead where it's like, man, it'll be a pain in the ass for them to try catching up. And that's, people look at that. And I think embracing, I could go on probably for a while here, but when you have your reviews, embracing some of your negative ones too, and how you respond. Because we have 600-700 reviews on there. I know when people come and look at us, they look at the 15 or 20 one-star reviews and how we respond to those, and your character shows up as a company and how you respond to those one-star reviews. So all those things are very affordable to do and just more tactical. And that becomes huge year 2, year 3, year 4, even though you might not see leads coming out the wahoo the first year.
Statistically, you are larger than most property management companies. Just statistically, number of doors, number of employees. So statistically then, if you were to carry that forward, a lot of the people that are listening to this are going to be in that smaller than you category. So you mentioned SEO being the long game. SEO, 5 years from now might pay off and put you in the position that you want to be in. But 5 years from now, somebody that's in your seat is also going to have 5 more years worth of SEO, and you're putting out way more content. Your links you've just got more ability to attract. So let's kind of take the reverse approach and say, okay, I am that person at 100 doors to 200 doors, something like that. And I want to come into a market where maybe, I'm in the market, but I'm in a market where I don't necessarily have the staff, the bandwidth to go after and dethrone somebody like GC Realty. What would you do to separate yourself from the competitors? What other marketing would you do? Is there anything, any like guerrilla
Yeah.
warfare, boots on the ground? Like, what would you do to try to compete in a marketplace where you're not the biggest player?
Yeah, so there's definitely I love both sides of this. You have so after so many years and you grow to the larger size we have, we become less flexible. Any bigger company in any industry becomes less flexible. If someone wants to change something on our management agreement, we kind of tell them no, and in a very polite way. And I think the ability to be flexible without shooting yourself in the foot, because if we're going to talk about mistakes made over the years, it's you're too flexible and you give somebody maybe too much control, or you're too low on price, where you don't set yourself up for future increases. And then also you deal with that problem 2-3 years later. But the ability to be a little more flexible with owners, maybe you'll let them do their own turns if it's over 10,000 or something like that. Maybe there's something like that you could work in there. I think being flexible is the biggest part. And I'm going to say this though, because I think this is true even in our huge market. And I think, if I would have said 5 or 6 years ago, I would never thought I'd still be saying this, but nobody likes putting content out and putting video out and doing all that stuff. And it's not because they don't have time; it's because they're freaking scared still. They're scared to get in front of this, and or scared to hire somebody to put them in it. But it's just there. So I don't care if you're in Virginia, if you're in Detroit, if you're on the West Coast. More than likely, your competitors are not. They don't have their face out there on their website. They're not being bold. They're not putting stuff out there. So the ability just to put yourself out there. Because here's the reality of it. I could walk away from here. I could film 5-6 videos on my phone, holding, I don't have it with me, my little tripod thing, some good factual stuff. I could upload it to a guy in Upwork for $4 a video. He'll at least clean it up a little if I know nothing how to do that, and they'll send it back. And I got 4 videos that I could post on all the different platforms, stuff like that. It's like no matter what, I think. When you're smaller, you have the ability to be the face of the company even more so, and that face is what can create authority, and that's what gets you hired is authority. Like, oh, these guys know what they're doing. No, a lot of people are not like, oh, they got a cool website. It's like, no, this guy knows what they're doing. This guy makes you feel, and it comes down to a confidence level, right? We were talking about before, self-managers versus product managers. Like they need that level of confidence, and a lot of times it's not even about price. It's about like, I just need to be able to sleep at night because this guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah, they don't want to hire somebody that they have to manage. Now, there are some people that are like that, but most people, they want to hire a property manager that's going to manage their property. They just need to know that you have the experience and expertise to do that. And once they're confident in that, then they kind of back down on their oversight of you. And so I definitely agree that it's all about creating that authority in the marketplace where they look at you as, yeah, I know what I'm doing, but they look at you as you are the person that's going to solve their problems and operate in a similar framework as what they would without them having to actually do it.
So your answer to your question is ultimately to be nimble, but I'll just say it again. Your competitors are not out there doing stuff, and it doesn't take a lot of time. And they're not out there because they're afraid most of the time. They're afraid how they look, and like take advantage of that. No matter what market you're in, you probably could. Even in Chicago, like there's not many other people that have big presence or huge content out there for not because I'm here, not because they don't think they get to throw me. It's because their own personal issues of fear of getting on the mic or whatever it might be. It's too much work, or I don't know how to edit, or it's funny. I hear all the time property managers are like, yeah, I don't know how to do blank. It's like that's one tiny 3% sliver in the entire process of creating content that I'll send you a guy today that'll solve that for you, or I'll show you exactly how to do it. So we obviously, this as a coach, like we create these mental roadblocks for ourselves that stop us from doing big things in life.
Yeah, it's funny.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect. I do it too, but it's.
Oh yeah, we all do it. It's just we all do it at different levels, right? And it's what you got. It's all about breaking through whatever current level of mental barrier you've put out for yourself, and being able to be convinced that you can break through that, and then figuring out how to do it. It's funny when I hear people say, I don't like the way I look on camera, or I don't like the way I sound on camera. And it makes me chuckle because it's like, I hate to tell you, but it's not the way you look or sound on camera. That's the way you look and sound. And everybody else sees you and hears you and that's just who you are. They don't have this other version of you. And so as soon as you drop that version of yourself that you think you have, where you hear your voice is different, where you see yourself differently, as soon as you just realize that you're the one with the different perception of who you are versus everybody else, the easier it is to just, hey, let's just have a conversation, pick up the camera and just start having a conversation with it.
Yeah, I heard something recently, and it's probably, when I say recent, it's probably been a couple of years, but it really helps me put things in perspective. Of the conversation was around public speaking. So many people are afraid to get out and speak, and wherever it came from is, and their whole point was like, you're freaking selfish. Like, you have so much value to get out there and give it to these people that are out there waiting, listening for it. They're here to hear you. They're here to learn. They're here to learn from your mistakes. And you're gonna be a chicken shit and be scared to go out there, or no different than, I think as an industry we're pretty giving. We want people to succeed. We want good for other people. Like we our entire industry is just solving for other people's problems. and when you're not getting on camera, like, you're just being selfish in that sense. You're just people that you could be helping out there, that your silly concerns, and I say silly, they're all real. Don't get me wrong. My wife would kill me for saying that. But your concerns for not doing, or your reasons for not doing it, end up, you're hurting other people and you're being selfish about it. So it's kind of helped me put things in perspective of, like, call it nerves of going live or getting up on a stage. Like that tell you, it's like, I'm here to help them. This is not about me.
Yeah, I love that. I love that mentality. One of the things that when I was a youth basketball coach, I coached like 36 seasons of basketball. We did 3 seasons year round. And when we would start, I'd have the players start. And, some of these, I would take them all the way from first and second grade, all the way up through ninth grade, get them into high school, and then start over with another team and start back with that first and second grade again. And before practice would start, even with my first and second graders, our routine was get your 20. And it just meant before we can start working on skill, you got to get used to the habit. And so it was show up and make your 20 baskets. And I always got to practice a half hour before. Like, gym was open. I always made sure we got a gym that we could reserve where we had at least a half hour before practice, where they would be there and they were to not count the misses, but count how many they made and get your 20 baskets in. And then once you had your 20 baskets, now we could start working on perfecting the skill. But I didn't want them being conscientious or subconscious or self-conscious about, I don't want people watching me. Am I tucking my elbow in enough or whatever? And so it's just getting in that habit, getting in that practice of, I'm just going to go out there and put myself out there. And then, the first 100 times you do something, I always say, is just practice. So just get in there and get it done. And I think that's good advice here in the business world too. Don't be selfish. Get good at putting yourself out there so that other people can benefit from the wisdom that you have.
I told Prop Age the other day, I'm like, you're never going to regret 2 years from now making a whole bunch of videos. You're always going to regret not making them.
Yeah. Well, I know I wanted to stay focused on this topic of property management marketing and what people can do to set themselves out and be different in the marketplace, how they can create a following. And you've given us a lot of that. I want to switch gears a little bit, but before I do you have anything else that you want to kind of point out on that topic?
I think there's, I was able to simplify things into what I feel confident in as far as the framework goes when it comes to marketing, right? There's so many. One of the most discouraging things when I got into creating the marketing department here at our company was, like, you could do a million things and it does nothing. So I've tried to break these things down over the years. But so we have basically 3 buckets of marketing. We have SEO. That's just kind of what can we do to build up drive people back to our website or help people find us. We have the people that are already in our community. And that might just be people. If you have Lead Simple, you have X amount of hundreds of people that have at least inquired. So those are people that have sort of raised their hand and said, hey, I'm probably a good fit, or I have a property, or I'm in your market, and they've given you their email address. Like, so that's kind of halfway warm lead. And then we have what we call spray and pray. We've just put stuff out everywhere, and hopefully you get them to give your email address, or hopefully they might come Google you up and find your website. And we've kind of chunked it down to those three things. Now, if we can find activities that work for all three, create an awesome video, share it with all the people that are in your network, spray it out everywhere else, and then it sits on our website attracting SEO. That's a great. Those are great efforts, I guess. It kind of covers all three. But you know what? I think all three are necessary. And I think that was just an easy way for me to break down our activities and really what we're trying to achieve. And ultimately, what we talked about this year was engagement. Spray and pray is great, but you got to get them in there. You got to try engaging with them and trying to engage with them, especially the middle bucket where people have already kind of been in your community or in your system. Like, they're okay. You can shoot them a text, especially in a place like Lead Simple. You could set up an automated text that sounds real, and then they're gonna get back. So engagement's kind of our theme for the year, of trying to bring people into our system to ultimately sign up for either tenant placement or property management.
I want to switch gears a little bit, just on two topics. The first one is a little bit of pricing. I went to your website and I saw that you've got a price range for your property management services. You're offering leasing only and then full service property management. And when I pull up the pricing there, you have a range of a couple of different percentage points between a low end and a high end. And what I'm just curious, as you're trying to build the leads, was that intentional to generate interest, to get them curious, to get them to reach out to you? I'm just curious as to what the thought process behind having multiple offers and then not being really clear about what you're actually charging for that service. Was that intentional? What's the story behind that?
Yeah, our goal is to not turn anybody away when we want to be out. We want to put pricing out there. We want them to land on that sheet. We want them to look at it, but we want to give them just enough to be able to inquire. And for us, though, we have rentals that could be $1,250 a month or $6,000 a month. And what we didn't want to do is detract or turn away people that's like, this higher percentage, which I could have put that fixed higher percentage, which I think is how we started. And they're like, that doesn't make sense, because we're more than happy for that lower rate to manage for that $6,000 a month rental. So it's more of just kind of incorporate everybody to see that we're flexible and understand. If anything, people inquire more to understand why we have a range. Now, it used to be back in the day geographic areas, because we had some tougher neighborhoods that we're taking new business on, and we just charge more. But we realized that the couple percent more we could get for those neighborhoods, the extra work was far outpaced the extra couple percent. So we sort of pulled back on our geographic area just because of just not as profitable.
All right, and I want to wrap up with this. You mentioned something earlier in our discussion here about smaller companies being a little bit more nimble, allowing owners to do their own make-readies, sort of being flexible in the programs that you offer. And as you've grown, you've been more strategic about restricting the options, which the less variables you have in your process flow, the better you can control it. And at some point, all companies that grow have to decide, how am I going to transition from when I had my first 30 clients, I let them basically screen their own tenants, or I would screen them and then I would present to and say, okay, you pick which one you want, or I'm going to call you for every single maintenance thing, regardless of how much it costs. And you're going to tell me, should we do it or not? And I'm going to let you do your own make readies, your own turnovers. And I get that, again, when we talk about starting a business, we're launching that rocket, and we got to do whatever we can to get it launched. And so we sometimes do things that we wouldn't want to do long term. But at some point we have to jettison those additional things that we had and be more streamlined and be more intentional about the business that we create. You mentioned allowing owners to do their own turnovers specifically, and I don't know if that was an example or that was a transition that you went through, but I want to get your opinion on how soon or how strict or what effects did it have when you started being more firm in the processes or the policies that you have in place. Did you lose business? Did you gain business? I just want to have a conversation around that because I think it's super important that property management company owners go into that conversation intentionally versus just letting the conversation go where it does.
I think so you can talk about, I can look back and say, how would I do things differently? So I think it was years later, it was maybe 10 years into the business where it's like, holy cow, now we got a bunch of new people in the company. We have all these exceptions, right? This guy over here has this, and now it's clearly written out in the management agreement, but now we have 54 different management agreements or changes or red lines. And so I think the sooner you do that, the better. And nimble can be terms, or nimble can be pricing, or nimble can be I think it really kind of chalks up to those two. So the less terms you could be kind of fixate or have just specific things. Because for us, like I said, those 54 different agreements had 125 different things. But if you're able to just kind of pick a few of these things and say, hey, listen, this is our management agreement. It's pretty firm. I could change. I could be a little more flexible on, our work order approval is $500. Maybe you could be 300, and you're able to be a little nimble. And maybe you just are nimble like that across the board, and then you could raise that all up at once. Or if I'm not a fan of owners doing their own work, but at a smaller size, you're able to be a little more flexible on the vendors that come in and the rate you charge, or you have a little less overhead in kind of the coordination of it. So you're able to do that with as a smaller company. So so sooner the better, right? I think too many companies get too far down the road where they take a 200 tenant client, make all these exceptions, and all of a sudden they realize they're not profitable because the way they got to operate. Then now they got to fire them, and now they're back at 90 doors, and having to fire people. So I think you have extremes of these exceptions. But yeah, if you could pick a few things, be nimble on them, and market to those that nimbility, if that's a word. I think that's huge because that's where you can market. Then, like, hey, if you could get away with let's use an example here. In Chicago, it's pretty standard to charge 1 month's rent for renewal. Like that's our thing. Like, I'm not saying everyone talks about that, but like that's just the kind of the price that it goes for. Being nimble, if you can find a way to be it more efficiently because you don't have the overhead and you can do it for half month, hang your hat on that for 2 years, and you'll get 30, 40 clients just from that. So. That's a huge part as far as being nimble. But yeah, as far as like the exceptions and letting people do that, I try to figure out where you want to be in 5 years, and be able to figure out how you could get out of that in 5 years. We never did that. And I think a lot of people you probably work with as well too, just take the business and we'll figure that out later.
Yeah, I think a lot of people start out with having a lot of exceptions. I'll say, let me see your management agreement, and we go through their management agreement, and then I'll ask, okay, well, how many are all your clients on this agreement? And then they say, well, no, I mean, that's our main management agreement, but we have this one and this one and these exceptions. And so one of the things that we came up with is we don't want to have exceptions. We want to offer options. And that way, if we have an option of whatever it is that they're trying to make an exception for, then we can create systems around that. And the less options you have, the less variables you introduce, but you can plan for those options versus trying to figure out how to manage exceptions.
Yeah, no, I agree. You worded that perfectly.
All right, Mark. Well, I appreciate your time here. I want to close out with giving you an option or the ability to tell us where do you think the future of property management is going as far as marketing, as far as standing out in the marketplace? And then what's the future look like over the next, say, 12 to 24 months for GC Realty?
Well, podcasts and video are not going away. And like we were talking about earlier, like if you're going to do it eventually, or you're going to just not really maximize your opportunity inside of your business. So that's kind of where I think is in the future. What was the second part of that question?
That's the future in general for property management. Where is GC Realty going over the next 12 to 24 months? What's the future look like for your company?
So ultimately, our BHAG, we do follow EOS. So our goal is to get to 10,000 doors. In the next 36 months, our goal is to get to 2,700 doors here in market. So we have no plans in expanding outside the market and just kind of growing inside of it. Our biggest challenges, I think, that for us to get there is figuring out how to manage some of these mid-size apartment buildings efficiently. And that's kind of what we're trying to, there's these C-class buildings that it's like, they're very profitable if you don't fix everything, but like fix certain things. Like they're perfect for self-managing here in our market. But there's the B ones, the B-class multifamilies that are a little more run similar to how we might run single family. So finding our niche in the smaller multifamily to get to that is going to be important. And then also, I think like anyone else, retention. The longer we can keep people, even if it's past, keeping someone 5-6 years is great, but maybe we keep it to stay 8 or 9 years because it just makes sense. And that comes through us being able to educate them and, again, making their life easy. People usually only think about selling when either they're not making money or they're having to put too much time into it. So if we could make sure we smooth that out, we could keep people another 20-25% beyond what they might have stuck around for.
Mark, I appreciate all of the information that you share with our audience. It's always a great time for me to be able to, whether it's over the computer screen or in person, it's always great spending time with you. You have such a vast knowledge in the property management space, in the investing space. You've become in lack of a better term, a celebrity person in our space. But I think it's not because of in like a Kardashian kind of way, but in a providing and maximizing the value that you're delivering to the industry sort of way. And so I appreciate you taking the time to hop on here with us. And I want to give you the last word. If there's anything you want to talk about, promote any one of your events or promote your podcast, give people an opportunity to connect with you in any other way, you've got the last word.
Yeah, I appreciate you inviting me on here. I'm honored in that sense and the kind of words you said. And I am, if anyone ever wants to reach out, if anyone wants to check out our podcast, straightupchicagoinvestor.com. If you want to jump on, I'm always willing to give my time and talk to you about what we did, what we didn't do, mistakes we made, things we do differently, or really how easy it could be for you to do it in your own market. So, I'm always willing to give back. So,
all right. Thanks again, Mark.
All right, Tony, thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to the Property Management Success Podcast. We'll be back with another value-packed episode to help you level up your property management game. If you've got something valuable out of today's episode, please share it with a friend or colleague, and don't forget to subscribe and leave a review so you never miss out on future insights and strategies and tactics. Until next time, here's to your success.